managed to enjoy the solar eclipse, assuming your schedule allowed you to do that. Where we were, well, it was a non-event because there was a bit of sun earlier on, and then it just went cloudy, and then it started raining, and then it was still raining somewhat, kind of drizzle, when we should have been watching the solar eclipse. However, there's always a second thing you can do, which was what we did. We went and turned on the TV, and we actually saw it in different places, different parts of Mexico and then the US. So there's always a way. However, I hope wherever you are, you managed to see it personally, because it is a great experience. I remember the one in 2017, which was not as good as this apparently, but it was still pretty cool. And got some pictures of that one. Today I thought I would bring to you two readings. Usually it used to be once a month, but now it's every 2 months. I read from a column called, it's actually, I'm going to read from it physically in here shortly. It's called Murphy's Dogma, Pause with Perspective. It's actually written by a gentleman by the name of Reverend Dr. Bob Lukin, who is at Mile High Church in Colorado, in Lakewood, actually. And of course, they're members also of Centers for Spiritual Living. It's kind of cool. And this one, I think, is kind of nice. I like it. And therefore, I think I'm going to read it today. Well, let's see how this one goes, though, first. Today's reading is called Inner Stirring. Inner Stirring. First quote is from Marcus Aurelius, who, of course, was the famous Roman emperor, was also a philosopher, who says, "Dig within. There lies the wellspring of good. Ever dig, and it will ever flow." And that's almost 2,000 years ago. Dig within. There lies the wellspring of good. Ever dig, and it will ever flow. You'll see as we go through the reading why that particular quote was picked. I know some of you are allergic to the word God, but just bear with me, because I don't like to change Ernest Holmes' words too much. If I read it and it's in the masculine, I will change it to either he, she, he, or gender non-specific. But he says the spirit within me is God. Now, when he talks about God, he's not talking about the image that you grew up with as a child. He's talking about the divine, the ground of all being, that which brought everything into existence, and which is both above and beyond everything, and yet everything is contained within it. So this is what he's referring to. And this was from, it's actually quite a good book, This Thing Called You. I don't know if you've ever read that, but it's really worth reading. This Thing Called You, and it's on page 56. It's kind of cool. The second is the story by Reverend Christian Sorensen. Is it a true story? Is it a myth? I don't know. Is it just something somebody made up? Who knows? I mean, who really knows? But the story has got a great message to it, which is more important. You know, people often think that because something is called a myth, that it's not true. Well, that in itself is not true, because myths always have at their base some glimmer of reality, of truth. It may not be literally true, and again, it may be, but by and large, a myth, it's usually not something that is literally true, but it's got a great message, and that there is always somewhere within that myth a basis for fact. A ruler of a small nation kept the peace, relying on his army and his elephants. As his bravest and oldest elephant reached an age where he could no longer lead the troops, the ruler released him from his duties into the jungles, where he was well provided for by the abundance of foliage. Sometime later, he was down by the riverside when the weight of his body caused him to sink deep into the mud, like quicksand of the riverbank. The more he struggled to free himself, the deeper he sank, until finally, giving up all hope, he trumpeted one last time in defeat. The villagers heard the commotion and hurried to get the wise ruler, who took one look at his friend and knew immediately what he must do. He called forth many of his soldiers with their war drums. he had them start pounding out the battle march. Something stirred deep from within the heart and soul of the grand elephant warrior. Something inside him remembered how powerful and how valuable he was. And with that remembering, the enormous creature found a strength within himself that he had not called on in years, in which to extricate himself from the clay. Of course, the message for us is this: when faced with an insurmountable challenge, listen to what stirs your soul into action, and you too will rise to the occasion. Life knows who and where you are. You have not been forgotten. You are a valuable contributor to your world. You are still needed and you are still wanted. Remember who you are and the gift you bring, and the world will see it as well. This kind of goes on from a previous reading where we were told that there's something or some things that each of us have the ability to do in this universe that nobody else who's ever been born and nobody else who ever will be born is able to do, just like you can do it. And when you call within yourself that strength, you find that you can do it. You know, our visioning class, as I was publicizing the other day, and I was mentioning at our service yesterday, it's a way of going inside yourself into that ground of all being and coming up with answers. When we first decided, and this is before my time at Creative Life Spiritual Center, Reverend Marshall Lyman was in charge of the practitioners at the time, and she passed away a couple of years ago. When they decided they wanted to build a new practitioner room, that's a room in which the practitioners meet their clients, or typically a practitioner meets one client, usually on Sundays after both services, as it was the 9 or 9:30 service and the 11 o'clock service. They decided that they would vision in order to get the best ideas from source as to what to put in the room, how to decorate it, etc. So they gathered a group of the practitioners together and they did joint visioning. I don't know how often they did it. And the ideas that came up from there were the ones that they put into use, and that's how it's called the garden room now looks today. It's our practitioner room, it's the garden room. And that's an example of visioning. Visioning can be something where it's what you allow your inner self, you allow spirit, the all, to come through with the answers. So you pose a question, and then in stillness, you wait for the answer. And the visioning class teaches you several different questions to ask and different ways to approach it. It is really cool. It begins on Thursday at 6:30. It is really worthwhile taking. Yes, I'm shamelessly promoting it. Why? Because it's a wonderful, wonderful way to develop your spiritual grounding. It's a wonderful way to manifest things in your life that come from source and not from ego. The affirmation today is: the indomitable strength of my being always rises when called. Or if you like, the inner strength of my being always rises when I'm called. In other words, when we're in time of need, if we go within, we will find the answers to whatever it is. And it may not be an answer that we've ever thought about. Should I read Murphy's Dogma today, or should I leave it till tomorrow? That's a really good question. Let me see what tomorrow's reading is all about, and then I can... Well, it really doesn't matter. I think we'll read it tomorrow, because today's reading is pretty good within itself. The message is pretty clear. that we have within us the knowledge and the ability and the power to overcome pretty well anything. And as we said before, when you need help doing that, you call upon a practitioner or a minister. Just as you would call in any other expression, you would call on a minister or a priest or someone to pray for you, members of a prayer group. I really don't want to say a whole lot more about this, except to say Marcus Aurelius had a lot of really wise stuff to say. And I think it's good to end with what he said. Dig within. There lies the wellspring of good. Ever dig, and it will ever flow. So please take care of yourselves. And I really mean that. Take care of yourselves. Tune into Reverend Lisa tomorrow morning to get perspective from another set of readings. And she'll be on at 9 o'clock Central Time. And as I said, if you experience the solar eclipse today, fantastic. You could let us know about it. I'm disappointed that we didn't see it. However, as I said, I did see the equivalent on television. So there you are. And coming back to my screen here. Yeah, just one last thing. It's always struck me as odd that we carry all this weight of stuff around within us that we don't need to anymore. And one of the things I encourage all of us to do is to just release it. And if you need help from a practitioner or a minister doing that, do it. Because this baggage just weighs us down. Remember, the past is gone. It's gone. What we can do is we can learn from the past. And guess who one of the hardest people to forgive is? It's ourselves. It's really hard to forgive ourselves. Therefore, your job today is to take a look at what in your life might need forgiveness and to just forgive yourself for whatever happened. And one way to do that is to just say your own name. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. And repeat it as many times as you need to do until it works. So until next time, may you be blessed by Spirit in all you do. Until next time, namaste.